NWSL, just like the rest of the world, absolutely has laser focus on this upcoming World Cup with 6 days till kickoff. And we're so thrilled about it that we're already trying to highlight the games that we want to watch, the teams that we want to see go head to head, which is really every single one of them. But
I know this was hard.
but big old but in here. For those of us stateside, our American audiences who are going to be tuning into this World Cup, it's taking place in the Southern Hemisphere. We've been talking a lot about the storylines going into this World Cup, and that's one of them as well. The first time one of the Women's World Cup is going to be hosted across 2 host nations in Australia and New Zealand. That means it's going to be in the Southern Hemisphere. The temperature is going to be a little different. It's summer here in the United States, so there's hot temperatures. I'm out in Miami right now for a conference. Now, let me tell you, it's a complete different energy than probably the weather is going on in Australia and New Zealand. It's a little bit more chilly out there.
I mean, we've already heard that, right? If on social media and the players coming out, a lot of the media that's traveling to the Southern Hemisphere, to Australia and New Zealand, saying, hey, there's a lot of different weather temperatures I have to pack for. Megan Rapinoe doing a great interview with Jeff Kassouf at the Equalizer and sitting in front of media conference and saying that when the U.S. women's national team arrived in New Zealand, she felt like she was at home. It was cold, it was rainy, it was windy. It felt like Seattle, Washington for Megan Rapinoe. So definitely an interesting kind of take on the World Cup this year, because I just think that people think like, oh, Australia, New Zealand, it's going to be sunny, it's going to be warm. No, it is their winter. It is definitely going to be interesting to kind of watch these games as we're sweltering here in America with all the heat and the humidity. They'll be bundled up there. So it just gives a different take on the World Cup this year.
It's been so funny checking in from this work conference in Miami, like every once in a while, like, oh, let's, make sure we're still tuned in to women's soccer here, what's going on, and watching some of these training highlight reels come out, and they're like bundled up in like their long sleeves and their pants, and we've got the puffer jackets, and I'm like, oh boy, like we're sweltering out here right now. But that's part of it. That's part of what we're going to see. And then of course that also comes a massive time change for those of us who are going to take in this World Cup stateside. We're talking almost a day's difference between the United States and Australia and New Zealand. So while, of course, we want to tune in to probably every single group stage match, we know that for literal health reasons, that's probably not possible for a lot of folks in terms of sleeping schedule and things like that. So we wanted to maybe take a look in celebration of 6 days out at some World Cup group stage matches that we're going to try to keep a closer eye on. Matchups that we are really, really intrigued by, that we're going to try to encourage folks to maybe take a look at alongside of us as well. Of course, when we're looking at 6 top group stage matches to watch, Lisa and I both agree, in honor of the co-host, you 100% have to try to keep an eye or catch the highlights of New Zealand versus Norway or Australia versus Ireland, as they both are kicking off on July 20th. These are the 2 games that will mark the start of the World Cup.
Yeah, this is massive. As Sandra alluded to, there's obviously a plethora of group stage games to watch over the span of several days, but we have to dive into New Zealand and Australia because they are the host countries. Their games will be sold out. We even saw that with friendlies that we'll talk about later in this episode. But you look at Australia going up against Ireland, that Group B matchup to kick things off will be in Australia for the Matildas. They have a sold out stadium, and they're going up against a debutante in Ireland. Massive game to kind of watch and take in. And same as New Zealand, this is 2 teams in 2 host countries that are incredibly proud of their culture, of their countries, of where they come from, of showing the world what their beautiful lands are like and everything that it can be. And the fact that they are good at football and they can compete. I think that no matter what ranking is for New Zealand, for Australia, for Norway, for Ireland, when you look at these matchups, there's going to be underlying emotions and layers that come into these games because they are hosting, because these teams are representing their nations. The opening ceremonies will be happening Thursday, July 20th. And then right from there will be these 2 games that are kicking off everything, the two host cities. So they are for sure the biggest ones to watch, at the top of our list for our top 6 group stage matches to watch. New Zealand versus Norway, Australia versus Ireland, Group A and Group B. Take a look at them.
Yeah, I think when we were kind of contemplating this, it's like, look, we've got to show some love to the co-hosts. You know, we've tried to do our best in every episode that's gone by in our celebration of the lead up to the World Cup to touch on as many different angles as possible. And we've talked a ton about the U.S. women's national team. We've chatted up Brazil. We're so excited to follow that team and what they're going to do in this World Cup as well. And we were like, you know what, we really got to show some love to the co-hosts here. And we're going to try to do that for this episode for sure. So in terms of 2 matches out of the 6 that we're definitely going to keep an eye on, absolutely make sure you're trying to get the highlights and tune into the New Zealand and Norway and Australia and Ireland match. But we're also going to take a look at some other group stage matches as well. I'm really intrigued by France versus Jamaica out of Group F. I think, you know, folks, I'm sure are going to, you know, with hearing me talk about Australia, New Zealand, and like, hey, like, did you catch that game? Yeah, we're going to talk about it for sure on this episode. And because of that recent result with France and Australia in that open exhibition game, it makes me really curious about the stakes of this match between France and Jamaica.
Yeah.
We know that France is a top 10 ranked team. They are absolutely considered contenders to compete for a title in this tournament. And Jamaica are making their return to the World Cup. They're not that debutante team that we saw in 2019. We have unfortunately have had to hear about some open disputes, really from both of these teams, with ongoing issues with their respective national teams. With France, it was a coaching and culture issue. And with Jamaica, we've been hearing a lot about lack of resources and preparation ahead of what is the biggest tournament in their program. So to know that there have unfortunately been some off-field issues that both of these teams have had to try to navigate into this game, and having this recent result for France, how are these 2 teams going to look as they go up against each other? So I'm very intrigued even more now that we kind of have the recent bit of information in front of us.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And when you look at Group F, which features France, Jamaica, Brazil, and Panama, Jamaica was in the 2019 World Cup. And in this group, it's interesting that they're back again with Brazil, because they lost 3-0 to Brazil in the group stage of the 2019 tournament. That ultimately was one of the dominoes in the way that Jamaica fell out of the 2019 World Cup. But you're exactly right. With France in this group, they've dealt with a lot of off-field struggles. They've dealt with injuries on the field. They've got new leadership with Renard as the manager, who has never really done this before. He's been to a World Cup, the Men's World Cup in November, but now he's kind of leading this France side that is a top contender to win it all completely. I mean, France are favorites heading into this one. They've reached the quarterfinals in the last 2 World Cups, losing by the smallest of margins, 2-1 to the U.S. in 2019, and then in 2015 to penalty kicks against Germany. So there's a number of different elements to this France side, and they have a target on their back. They've also got a chip on their shoulder. And when you look at Jamaica, of course, led by Khadijah Bunny Shaw, she's a 26-year-old. She's got 31 goals in 30 games for Manchester City this year in the Super League. So we talked about her a lot this year. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Bunny Shaw to perform and to represent her country. But I think Jamaica can be part of the sleeper team in this group. And I agree. I totally love this matchup between France and Jamaica. We're going to see some good stuff out there. I mean, the first match of a group stage is always so intense. That's why we picked 3 group stage matches that were the first game of the group stage.
Yeah, we wanted to split it for sure. I mean, it kind of gives you a little bit of goosebumps, when you find those are the first moments for some national teams, as they kind of get ready to get exposed to the environments, the sights, and the sounds of what this World Cup is going to be for them. I'm excited for that matchup. I'm also excited for perhaps what we're going to see in terms of a tactical battle in Japan versus Spain out of Group C. That one taking place on July 31st. Japan sitting just outside of those top 10 rankings. They're ranked at number 11. Spain within the top 10 as well. They just came off of a friendly against Vietnam, a debutante team. And listen, they have to be feeling quite confident out of that, because I believe the ending scoreline in that was a 9-0 scoreline. It was huge. They put a ton of goals up on the debutante Vietnam. So a learning opportunity here for probably both teams, because I have to imagine that Spain going into a match like this, a friendly against a debutante team, they're also aware of who they're playing against and their place in this World Cup versus their experiences in navigating major tournaments. So I would imagine that this game against Japan and Spain isn't going to have some type of scoreline like that at all.
Oh, completely.
If anything, I feel like Japan will probably be a major test against Spain. They will probably make it very difficult for them to find an open lane and get as many clean looks on goal.
Completely. I think the tactical battle between Japan and Spain is going to be the most fascinating, because you look at the technical skills that both of these sides have and how their nations play historically, how they're coming into this in the form that they have, right? You look at the players. Japan has one of the youngest squads in the World Cup. Their oldest player is 28 years old. 1994, and their youngest player 2004, 19 years old. That is just less than a 10-year age gap. It's 9 years between the oldest and the youngest. This Japan side is going to come out and kind of rock and roll. When you look at Group C that Japan and Spain are in, they're the top favorites to win and come out of this group. We talked about first group stage matches. This one between Japan and Spain on July 31st is the final group stage match for these sides. Japan plays Zambia first, and then they play Costa Rica. Spain plays Costa Rica first, and then Zambia heading into this one. So that's like it, all the marbles. Yep. This game is going to be for all the marbles.
There's going to be stakes in this game.
No matter like how, right, say that Spain and Japan go 2-0, but right in both of their first games. Obviously, it comes down to a win, who gets out of it, but you have to look at goal differential a little bit too, and having a little bit more confidence, because second, right, the runners up in groups can also get out, and that's how they sneak out of it. So when you're looking at like the group of C, we're going to see goals. I think throughout the group stages, if a team can score goals, they're going to try to rack them up, get as many as they can, and run on that goal differential streak.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we're looking at games to keep an eye on and things that might have implications in the group, I love that you touched on those scenarios with Japan and Spain. But on July 27th, USA is going to go up against the Netherlands. And that's absolutely a game among our top 6 group stage matches to keep an eye on. Maybe this is the game that kind of dictates how things might shake out for Group E. What if this game ends in some kind of like ridiculous 1-1 draw between these two in the group? And what does that set up for the final group stage? I think this is probably going to be the match that folks have their eyes on, just for some of the storylines that go into it. I mean, it's a little bit of a repeat in terms of the 2019 final, where the USA got the better of Netherlands to lift the cup. And the Netherlands, similar to USA, have had to navigate some pretty excruciating injuries along the way leading up to this World Cup. I'm beyond excited and hyped for this game. Of course, it's on our top 6 group stage matches to watch.
Yeah, but it's not our number one. Well, no. we can't get there yet, right? Because it doesn't happen until July 27th. So there's a lot of other matches to get there, but the rematch from 2019, there's just so much into this one. We'll have all the previews for you for all of these individual matches, especially the United States ones, previews, recaps, here on Attacking Third on Golazo Network. We got them all, and we'll break them all down for you. But USA Netherlands, Thursday, July 27th. This one's a good time. It's a 9 p.m. kickoff Eastern, right? That's a good time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Americans will be watching for sure. Let's take a look at the final game that we want to keep an eye on. It's our top 6 group stage matches for you all to watch along. The South Korea versus Morocco match is a game that we are very curious about. We're highlighting some debutantes along the way. And while we mentioned Australia going up against Ireland, we definitely wanted to mention Morocco going up against South Korea. Wonderful storyline for this team heading into the World Cup.
Yeah, massive for sure. When you look at the group, Group H, it's Germany, Colombia, South Korea, and Morocco. Germany, the clear favorite heading into this group. But I think to me, when there's like a solid favorite, that's like, oh, okay, everyone just kind of writes them off. They're going to get out of the group. That's what makes the group that much more interesting, because the runners up also get out of the group. They head to the round of 16. And when you look at the last year that Moroccan football has had, with their men's team making it through to the round of 16 and going on an incredible run in the World Cup in November, and then this Moroccan side making their very first debut in the Women's World Cup, they go up against Germany to start. It's going to be a tough challenge for Morocco when they kick off this Group H. It's not going to be an easy run for them. They then get South Korea in their second match. And I think that's the game that we picked because of how South Korea is and their form coming into this match, and really what we can't expect from Morocco. I'm going to say that's what makes it so intriguing, because they're riding high off the support of their nation, the support of their men's team and the national team, and heading into this one. It's not going to be an easy run for Morocco, but that's when we see the true grit and the blue collar energy of these different teams and the debutantes shine through in the World Cup. So for sure, you got to keep an eye on South Korea versus Morocco, July 30th. That's the second match day for Group H in the World Cup. I mean, Sandra, we got some big ones on our list to watch.
Yeah, we do. And we've got some teams, like you mentioned, that we're keeping a particularly closer eye on.